This episode of The Dog Show features Julian Victoria. Julian is the creative genius behind Dog Magazine, a lifestyle magazine for dog owners and lovers. A photographer and video producer by trade, Julian was inspired to create a magazine, and his love for dogs and the icebreaking effect they have on their owners led to the first issue of Dog Magazine. Dog takes a unique look at the owner behind the dog, with interviews and stories about interesting dog owners from all walks of life. In the interview, we discuss dogs in print by taking an in-depth look at the creative process behind publishing an issue of Dog Magazine.
Julian, welcome to the Dog Show today. Thank you so much for coming on.
No, thank you so much for having me.
I'm really excited to talk to you about this crazy dog magazine that you have created and the inspiration behind. But before we get into all of that and talk about your career and how you've got to where you are today, I want to hear a little bit more about your dog. So before we jumped on the interview, we were talking about one of your dogs that had passed on, Sophia, but you also there's a couple of other dogs in the mix as well. Do you want to tell me a bit about your dogs?
Well, I used to have 4 dogs, 3 female ones, and then a rescue one, his name is Dora, but he's a boy. He came with a name, so I kept it because I think it was very original to keep his name and ignore the gender of the dog. But I have Sophia and Phoebe and Daisy. They were the same breed. They are Lakeland Terriers.
Okay.
Sadly, Sophia and Daisy passed away within these 2 years. But I still have Phoebe, which is a senior now. She's 14. And you can definitely tell now that she can hear very well. She can see very well. But I'm pretending that she just wants to ignore me and she doesn't want to pay attention to me anymore. So she pretends to be blind and deaf. So
you said Sophia was the most fun. I'm sure you wouldn't tell the other dogs that, but
I think it just when you have 4 dogs, you kind of you identify their personalities. And out of the 4, I love them. I love them all, but they all had different characters. And I think Sophia, because it was my first dog, it was a little more special. I think it was my first dog as an adult, so you kind of learned how to take care of this dog, and you make mistakes or you do, the books or the training classes and things like that. So she was very special. She was very my experiment with dog ownership. And she turned out to be very social, very adventurous. She will, she didn't care about anything. She would jump on stuff. She will, get lost all the time because she was so curious about people. So she was fun to be around, and very social with other people. She will, like people, and she will go with people if they give them treats and stuff, which is very dangerous. But she was very, very fun. The other ones, like I said, Phoebe. I think Phoebe, she is a cat trapped in a dog's body because she doesn't care about anyone by herself, and she's always by herself, and she only comes when she needs something. Daisy, who she passed away last year, and she was 10, but she always had the puppy personality. She was very puppy-like, and I think she never grew up. So she was very shy, very protective, and she was always like next to me. And Dora, which is, I think, out of all of them, is the most unique dog that I ever had. It's just like he is so human-like. His facial expressions are just sometimes too real when he looks at you. Very smart dog. I don't know. He's a rescue though, so I'm sure the previous owner had, did a really amazing job training him. But he does really stuff. He follows you. He looks at you, and if you do like gestures with your hands, he kind of follow instructions, which I find it very, very interesting. So he's a very unique dog that I just keep ignoring that he's getting old because I don't want to lose him yet. I even actually consider someone proposed to me to do a documentary about cloning him. just because he's so unique. But we did a lot of research about cloning a dog,
Mm,
and it was very, very, it was really bad for the dogs who are part of it,
mm,
like the mother and, the whole process of it was too invested for the other dogs, which I just don't feel like I want to be part of it.
mm.
So we decided not to do the documentary about cloning my dog. So we just left it alone. So.
That's interesting. I've not really thought about cloning a dog before. Is that a thing that is done? Is that kind of like an ethical thing that is done in the UK or the United States or?
Yeah, in the US is there's a lot of people who does it. I
Mm.
think Barbara Streisand did it.
Oh, that rings a
She
bell. I think I might have read an article about that years ago. Yeah.
So I think with with that, with that mentality of having Dora forever,
Mm.
keeping him or the vision of him or have something similar looks like him because he's a rescue dog, he's mixed, so we will never get another dog exactly like him. So the idea, I honestly, I made a comment with someone who works at Netflix about like how fun will be to keep him, like keep another Dora and keep copying, cut and paste. And this person was like, well, you should think about making a documentary about it. And it sounded very interesting. I was very excited. I was very, looking forward to the
Mm.
whole idea. But once again, we did the research and it was just too much for the other dogs. And I don't think it's fair to put those other dogs in that situation of selfishness. Like it's a little selfish. And I didn't want to be part of it. So yeah.
It's
And I
interesting.
don't think Netflix either wanted to be part of. It will be too controversial if you know what I mean.
Okay. I feel like someone might do that at some point, a documentary about that. Whether or not it's ethical or not, I'm not sure. But it's interesting that it would kind of, the experiment from my perspective, where it would be very interesting, is that it would kind of look at that nature versus nurture argument. Because you're saying
Yeah,
Dora is so unique, but I wonder how much of that is from his history and his experiences and the brain chemistry that he's developed from that. So,
but
um,
that was the other part of the idea of see
mm,
how that plays a role or how he was brought up because I
mm,
don't know anything from him. I mean, I know his previous owners, but I don't know how they train him or what how these people were with him. So there were the chances that he will look like Dora, but he would not act like Dora.
mm.
Just because it's just when they're puppies, they are encoded with those special things that dog owners do. And I don't think I will ever do something exactly like Dora's ex dog owners were, did. So
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned you've had four dogs and they've all got different personalities and kind of different behaviors and things like that. Because I guess that kind of debunks the idea that the dog turns into their owner in some way because all your dogs have got unique attributes.
um I with the magazine I always ask that question. Like, do you think your dog reflects your personality or reflects the owner? And I always I never actually answered asked that question to myself, but um I think so. I think my dogs are like when we're in the park, we are I go very early, like around 6 when there's no one because I used to have four and walking four dogs in the park gets a little bit too, so I used to go very early. And I think when we do that, we just kept ourselves for ourselves. And I think when I walk or I do something, I just want to keep myself and I don't want to like be distracted. And I think that's something that I picked from my dogs that we were all in one pack and we were not, distracted. And sometimes a squirrel, yeah, but not with other things. I think we were just very focused. I think that's what it is. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I don't think I think my dogs are normal. I think I see other dogs, and I will say, oh my God, those dogs are out of control. But I think my dogs were well behaved. I think I never like to impose my dogs to other people. I correct them if they're barking, or I don't want to bring them to a household, or a restaurant. Like I tend to have the dogs at home or in the countryside, but never kind of you know force them to people or to places. And I think that's how I am too. Like I'm very careful with imposing people. So yeah, I think that's if it answers my question about if you really
No, it's
reflect, then
interesting.
yeah.
It's interesting to hear your perception on that as well. So what do you get out of being a dog owner? Because you've obviously loved dogs and you've got lots of dogs and you've got a magazine about dogs. So what do you personally get out of it?
It looks like I'm living twice. I literally came back to that to do we were doing an interview for a magazine, not for our magazine, but another magazine. And I was asking the same question to the person, and I always ask questions, but I never ask those questions to myself. And today I actually realized that they do bring me a lot of things. And for example, structure. Like once again, I wake up every morning in the morning, even if it's raining, I walk them. It could just make me start my day. And I think that's very important. I think when the dogs are not here, for if I'm traveling or they're somewhere, like I will easily sleep until 10. But having the dogs, like, it gives you that structure of waking up and going with your day and be more productive, if that makes sense.
That's true. I do like that aspect of having a dog as well. If I'm ever tempted to sleep in, you get the tap on the shoulder and get told
It's
that
true,
I do.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. The thing is, like, with once again, 4 different personalities. With Sophia, she will not wait. Like, if you're not up at 6, she will pee in the house. So because of me, I was like, you know what, I need to get up before she gets up, because if she does, she would do it. Daisy, on the other hand, she will scratch me or try to get my attention to take her out. The other two, they can sleep until I sleep. So now there are only two. Literally, we can sleep until 11 and they don't even bother getting up. But in my mind, I just don't think it's fair for them to hold themselves. So I wake up and I do it, and I try to exercise them, because it's the only time that I feel like they have the chance to be outside and run and things like that. And we normally do it for an hour. So because the rest of the day I'm busy or I'm doing something else. So yeah.
And as you said, you get the benefits from it as well. So keeping that habit is a good thing for you and
Oh
your
yeah,
mental health.
yeah,
So yeah.
of course. And it's also good for your health. You're moving because you're on your desk, for example, sometimes for hours, and you don't go out besides walking your dog around the corner. So having that hour in the morning with your dogs kind of really puts you in that exercise mode. At least I walk for an hour, because of my dogs. Because if it wasn't that, I would probably work 10 hours and not even see outside. So.
I actually find it's good for the brain as well. It's good for my mental health because, as you mentioned, like you can get so involved at the desk working all the time, or watching TV, or do whatever you do inside the home. When you get outside for an hour with your dogs and get some fresh air, or even if it's raining, it's almost like a reset for my brain, which I get from that.
I think I discovered like now with 2 dogs, my life has been much simpler than before for everything. I mean, sadly, Daisy died a year ago when the epidemic, but now with 2 dogs, the house is quiet and I can do more things. For example, like I noticed that I was editing some photos and I just couldn't do it anymore. And I kind of felt like I needed to go for a break. And if you have 4 dogs, I will think about twice because, 4 dogs in a park, So I took the 2 dogs and it was very easy just to like take a break, just go for a walk with the dogs. They're well behaved. They behave with other dogs in the park. And it was just like when I came back, it was just like I was so refreshed and ready to just work again and with a clear mind and see the errors that I was making, before I went for a walk.
Yeah, exactly. It's very good for that. Okay, so I could probably talk about the benefits of dogs forever. So let's not get too
Oh,
sidetracked.
yeah.
But tell me more about how. I mean, you've been in the entertainment industry for many years, but how did you end up creating Dog Magazine? What led you to that time?
I was doing some freelance photography for a few magazines, on independent magazines, and one of the magazines that I was working for, or I was doing some freelance work, the editor, I became very good friends with him, and he kind of walked me through the whole process of creating a magazine. And in my mind, I was like, well, that sounds very simple. Not simple, but it's just like it's doable. Is when you think about creating a magazine, you will think, and I talked to my grandfather, and he was like, "You crazy? I mean, do you even have the money to create a magazine?" But um, of course you do need money, but I think there's so many ways if you have a very strong idea, the possibility to create it into a magazine is very easy. Not easy, but it's doable. And so with that mentality and listening to what he does and he telling me, how, the process of a magazine, because I only knew just submit the pictures and that's it. I didn't know anything else. Um, I learned a lot from him, and I decided, you know what? I just want to try. I want to have my own publication, but I didn't know what it was, what subject, because I was like, fashion is not my thing, and there's so many competition up there. Travel magazine, there's everyone is doing a travel magazine. So I kind of want to had a magazine that kind of like talk about all those subjects, but had something else in common. And I realized that dogs is that point that you can talk to people about anything, but it's just the dog is kind of like the icebreaker of any conversation.
Mm.
So you probably will have a conversation with an architect and have, that you normally would not have, but because both of you are dog owners, that's the first icebreaker that you have. And I found it very easy to talk to these people in the park, for example, people that you normally would not talk to, and they will come easily to talk to you because you have a dog or they have a dog. Sorry, my dog is
I can
basically
see.
next to me.
That adds a bit of character.
Sorry.
Yeah, I think
He went.
that's a really interesting kind of observation that people just drop their guard a little bit when
Yeah, yeah.
the topic of dogs, because it's like it's a very personal thing, but also you can share that personal thing with other people.
Yeah, so my idea for the magazine in issue one was to kind of like showcase a dog breed, and this is the idea of issue one, but it was showcase a dog breed and just kind of dissect that breed and any characteristics of that breed and create content out of it. For example, so we did a Dutch breed, and then we decided to go to Holland. We did like a travel piece. We talked about Dutch people, Dutch culture. We talk about the language. There's a lot of Dutch ideas because of the dog. But for issue two, we discovered that, we got very interesting people that we could have conversations with, and they were willing to have it with us. So it was a little bit less doggy based for issue two, because it was a little more interesting to see how people will be in the same level of you. For example, if someone's very, very famous, all the famous part of it will just stripped, and you have a human being who has a dog owner, and you have so much in common, just because of this thing, this animal. And so we find it very interesting that we can have access to people, people that we like, creative people, interesting people, just because we have dogs. And so we wanted to go that route now, just to kind of like have conversations about any topic, but with this cues that we all have dogs. So yeah.
That's okay. So that's kind of the creative direction of the magazine at the moment.
Yeah.
Is to, I guess, the dog is the centerpiece, but then it's really about the person behind the dog.
Exactly. It's like I said, like it's an excuse or key to into their house, basically. But I think by every single issue that we do, the topics have been a little bit more serious, if you want to say that. Or, for example, we talk about politics now. I think we did a piece about, I think 4 years ago, about the new administration in the U.S. that is, we said that the administration is completely different to what we had before, to the point that they don't even have a dog. Every single president at that time had a first dog, and this is the first time that a dog was not going to be part of the White House. So we kind of use the idea to describe how different this administration was going to be. So we kind of use a topic and we kind of implement the dog element to it, which I find it very fascinated. We talk about gender, for example, how people think because you are male, you have certain type of dogs, and if you're a female, you will go with tiny dogs, purse dogs. So it was a really interesting conversation about gender based on dog breeds. So things like that really excites me. That it's not about just how beautiful the dog is, but there are so many things behind it that we can talk about and implement the dog angle to it.
So when you're creating a new issue, do you start with, the breed of dog, or do you start with that, that important social issue that you want to address, and then kind of work outwards from there?
I think it has changed for a bit. I think it started with issue 4, which was a Pomeranian. We really wanted to do the Pomeranian because we haven't done a fluffy dog, for example. So we kind of investigate, who do we want to talk to who has a Pomeranian. So there was a lot of candidates that we had. So we look for that person until we find it. But we found out that it's very difficult to be so specific on the dog breed, because not a lot of people have that breed that we want to talk to. So now we just basically find very interesting people and kind of analyze what kind of dog they have, and then see if that dog is kind of like, if he inspires to other stories. So for example, the French Bulldog, we wanted to interview this actor, and it was good because we can go to France, we can talk about French stuff. So it was really, really interesting to kind of like find someone who had an interesting dog that we can create content, with.
So it kind of starts with the person, then you're looking at, it's multi-layered by the sounds of it. You've got the person, you've got the dog breed, you've got the history behind both of those, and then you've also got the
Yeah,
social issues that kind of weave in between that.
exactly. So, example, for like, let's do the French one. So with the French Bulldog, we we always play with the origin of the dog. So we go to those places with the origin. Sometimes really strange locations, like the Pomeranian. We went to Poland, and in the middle of nowhere, and I find it fascinating just going to places that nobody wants to go. But we went there because that's where the dog is from. And we did a whole travel piece about it, and interview people and met people in that area. So we always take those elements in account. We pay attention to those elements when we want to feature the dog or this person. What else can we do with the dog breed? What else is behind that dog breed? But we always try to do a travel section, and because it's always nice to go to a different place and meet people. And
Well,
sorry.
you can start to choose dog breeds based on where you want to travel now.
Oh my God, yeah, definitely. I think that's what happened with issue 2. We wanted to go to Japan,
Yeah.
so we did Shiba Inu. It's a free vacation. So, but nobody, we did that, and sometimes we do that. It's just because we ideally we would like to do that, but it's just the main story, the main dog owner. It's always difficult to find it. We wanted to do it, what's it called, the Basenji, for example. And I was like, who has a Basenji? Like, who famous person has a Basenji? So it was really hard to look for that. So we decided not to do it, because even though we have an amazing content, we need a main story, we need a character, and we couldn't find it.
I guess, interestingly enough, you could, I mean, just a regular person or a non-famous person would have an amazing story as well about their history with dogs. I'm sure that would create an issue too. But
No, we do have those people too.
okay, but
But
you want the kind of hero piece as well.
yes, because it's a magazine and we need to sell. So,
Yeah,
I know it's a business too. So we
yeah,
need to balance it. But we do incorporate, we have famous people, but we do have, person who's around the corner, but it has the dog breed. So we kind of, integrate different things. And in the magazine, everyone is equal. Just because you are famous or you're a top designer, you know, you are the same person next to the person who the local store who has a
yeah.
dog. You know what I mean? So we try to, you know, treat everyone equal. Like we said that we don't have a main story, like everyone is equal. And we put the same effort to every single story, that we create.
Cool. So do you have a favorite story from one of the issues that you could share?
Um, I think I guess stories. I think my favorite stories of the magazines has always been the stories that people submit, like the personal stories, or some writers who just want to write, or they write fiction and nonfiction. Those stories are always very interesting. There's one in issue 2. There was this lady who had a Lakeland Terrier like me, and she kind of like tells a story of her dog getting old and how she had to adjust herself in the house to live with this dog. And it was the cutest and more relatable story that I ever read, because everyone who has a dog will encounter that situation where you see your dog, getting old, and you had to assist them, and make sure that he doesn't trip on the stairs and things like that. So I found the story very, very touching, because I was like, it's going to happen to me, and I don't know what I'm going to do when I had to like proof my house so the dog doesn't hurt himself. So those stories are I always find it very interesting. We do get a lot of very sad stories, so we tend to ignore them because we kind of. Sorry, my dog is going crazy.
That's okay.
Dora, stop it. He's
That's
making a nest.
all the personality of Dora in the background.
Exactly. He's just, sorry. So what I was saying is, we get a lot of stories from people. People are they're free to send us their stories, but sometimes the stories, like 90% of the stories, are about a rescue dog, and they send us pictures that are very graphic. And I think those people are the people who don't know the magazine or hasn't read the magazines, and they think that is those are the type of stories that we produce. Which sometimes we just say thank you very much, but that's not what we're looking for. So it was always hard to find that really good story, but when it comes, is really amazing to publish it. So those are like my main stories. But I think in terms of a piece that I had liked for many reasons is my interview with this designer Dries Van Noten, just because he was so nice. His team was so helpful and very easy to work with, that make this story an amazing experience. And I think out of all the stories that we have produced, I think that was the one that I enjoyed the most, and I'm very proud of that I did it. And it was just a different type of work that we have done, and I wish everyone that we have interviewed was like this, but it always has been like my favorite story that I have produced and done. So yeah.
And which issue is that in?
That is actually issue 6.
Okay, issue 6.
Which is the one that we just had, yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a very fulfilling process that you go through, because it's there's a lot of emotion involved, but it's kind of inspiring hope as well, but also then you're meeting some interesting people and you're sharing stories, and it's a very human journey, I guess, that you're going on when you create the magazine, which is then reflected in the end product.
Yeah, it's a good project. I that's what I'm saying. Like I enjoy, and everyone who's involved enjoys it. We get to travel, we get to know people, we get to work with dogs, and it's just a fun thing. It's just like, you meet other, not only people that we interview, but illustrators, writers, all the photographers. Just kind of like work with creative people is always being very, very interesting.
Cool. Well, Dog Magazine for me is firstly a beautiful looking magazine, which would be perfect for a coffee table or a buffet or something like that in someone's house, because it's obviously got those chic modern design aspects to it, but there's also a great deal of substance behind the doors as well. So where can people find out more about Dog Magazine and everything that you're doing?
Well, we literally just finished issue 7, which is coming out. He's actually being delivered on Thursday. Is about the Italian Greyhound. So it's going to be an Italian inspired issue.
Okay.
So we have a lot of Italian things. So that's going to be available on our website from. It's available now, so you can actually pre-order it, but is available to be shipped on Thursday. And our website is readdogmag.com. And it's the same thing for social media and Instagram. You can actually purchase it on social media as well, which the handle is Read Dog Mag. So yeah.
Perfect. Well, I'll tag Read Dog Mag on Instagram, and we share the podcast there, but also share all the links to the website and everything in the show notes. But
Yeah, thank you.
Julian, thank you so much for the chat
No, thank
today.
you.
I think it's been an absolute enjoy. I've enjoyed myself so much. I've heard a lot about your dogs, but also about the creative process you go through for Dog Magazine. And it's a really fun and inspiring way to look at dog owners and their lifestyles.
We can actually talk for hours about
I
dogs and stuff.
know. I'm not
I
sure
don't know
other
how you
people
do
would
it.
listen to it. Maybe they would, but
No. It's always interesting. It's always
Mm,
interesting, and you don't realize how much you can talk about it.
mm.
Because there's so many ways that you can go with the conversation, and that's the whole beauty of having dogs.
Well, actually, like the things that I've learned from this conversation about the way I can ask questions as well have been really interesting for me because there's so many different layers that you're talking about when you interview people for the magazine and things like that into the story behind the dogs, which has got me thinking as well. So,
No, I think and the funny that you said that is because I think a lot of brands actually hire me because of that,
mm,
and I tend to stick away from being, uh, put in a box as a dog thing. But I sometimes if the project is very interesting, I will do it. But I've been told that that we have put uh, a different perspective of how to work with dogs, and I think I always said that you are targeting the dog owner, not the dog. You
mm,
know, even for retail or things, the dog doesn't know what pink or blue is the dog owner, and you're targeting the dog owner, and that's the thing that we learn, just to kind of target and focus on the dog owner, and kind of like you know touch those elements that they like about their dogs, and how can we stimulate those things, because the dog is just part of it, but it's all about the human.
yeah, definitely. Well, thank you once again for coming on the dog
Oh,
show today. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I've learned a lot, as I said, and I'm sure everyone else will have a lot of fun with this episode.
oh, well, thank you so much.